Hello, my name is Ravi Jagannathan. Today I'm going to talk about the deployment vulnerabilities in OpenStack. So people introduce vulnerabilities when they write code, and that's one thing. Now we have written all the code, we have packaged everything, we got a bunch of hardware, we got the software. Now we are going to deploy that as a cloud, as a private cloud, hybrid cloud, public cloud, whatever it is. Then if we have done everything right, there shouldn't be any vulnerabilities there, right? Actually, that is not the case. Even with a pretty good software, when we deploy it, we could actually deploy it wrong. And if we deploy it wrong enough, that hackers will own our cloud. And it has happened, unfortunately. And I hope it doesn't happen, but I think it continues to happen. So OpenStack is serious about security. You guys all know that, right? There is a link there. They tell you this is the link. You can go there. It tells you all about security. And it is explained a lot. There's a lot of information there. And then, there is a specific section that they talk about, development guidelines, what all your development guidelines should be for, maintaining good security practices and secure coding in OpenStack. They talk about that too. So these are all helpful to the people who develop the OpenStack software, OpenStack code, various components, and how they communicate, stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's not enough. If you guys go to the link that I mentioned, one thing you won't see is secure deployment guidelines. Of course, OpenStack cannot go around and then dictate every single deployment that there is, because there are many and they are varied in nature. However, there are some guidelines that could really be a common guidelines people can use as a checklist. It's possible, and as a community, I think OpenStack is really a great community to take this on, because it's missing. And I have been deploying cloud for a good part of last 10 years. I'm deploying like 14th or 15th of my cloud now, really large scale clouds. And so based on my experiences, I come across various vulnerabilities people introduce while they deploy a cloud. While this is a very short talk, I'm going to talk for some times, and then I'm just going to give you guys an opportunity to mention what kind of vulnerabilities you have seen in your deployments or in some other people's deployment. So we need to develop deployment guidelines in OpenStack community, and we don't have that. This is missing. It is worth somebody brings this up, and I don't mind contributing, spearheading, whatever it is, but I'm going to be talking about this a lot because I've deployed enough cloud to know this is a big hole and it is missing. Maybe I'm wrong, but as far as I could see, it's missing. So it has to be a community effort. So there will be many guidelines, but those guidelines have to be synthesized into a simple, more like a checklist, which can cover majority of the situations. It won't cover all, but lion's share it can cover. And such a checklist will go a long way in helping customers so they can feel secure, and actually in helping the cloud operators, service providers, and even when people have their own private clouds internally, it will reduce the IT workload, reduce the cost. I'm just going to go over 2 or 3 security deployment vulnerabilities I'm noticing, and I'm just going to give you guys a few minutes to say if you guys have any on your mind. I'm just going to go through case study one by one. All of these things have happened one time or other. So there's a cloud deployment team, and they build a prototype of the cloud because they are moving to a new release of the software, internally built software, or they are moving to a more stable or feature-rich version of OpenStack. And they got all of them together, and they built the prototype with their hardware, and they installed the software, and they just do their testing. And it's a lab-only prototype, obviously. So to make everybody's life, convenience, they build a user with a sudo access, so people can actually do a lot of the testing without, worrying about it. And they divide who needs to test what, so nobody's stepping on each other, and it works. So they come up with a user ID and password that everybody remembers, like OMG is the user ID. I just picked this. Everybody has their favorite user ID and password, and the password is oh my god. So they have that, and after testing all of their software and hardware, everything, compatibility, speed, performance, all of those things, they actually start upgrading their cloud incrementally. They deploy it with the lab user ID and password with it. So there are many ways of pushing a software into the cloud. One way is you can do incrementally, or you can do wholesale, but most people do incrementally. And everybody slowly this famous user ID and password spreads, and everybody in the company wants to be the admin of that private cloud. Or if it is left unknowingly, some hacker figures this out, and when somebody figures out, they land up owning your cloud. It seemed like such an innocent mistake. It seemed like such a simple procedure. However, it happens. It happens more number of times, more frequently than people would like to admit. It's something, it's a very popular mistake. So this has happened before, and I'm afraid it may happen again. So this is something, it's a very simple case study. There are about 10 plus classic case studies like this. For brevity's sake, I'm just going to take 3 of them. And if you guys have anything on your mind, you can talk. If not, we can have a very short talk. Case study 2. So there is a sysadmin, and in part a programmer who's a great script writer, and that person, he or she, wants to automate, many of the things that they do routinely in the OpenStack. So they start writing, for example, a Python code. So they get an HTTP connection. They want to log into the work. It's just their own little script. They are not, nobody's supposed to use this, and they've got everything, and they're just getting ready to start a session. So here they got their IP address hard-coded, and they get the IP connection, and they're simply innocently logging into their own pod with their own script. What's the problem? Hard-coded credentials. So here what is happening is, actually it has happened more times than I would like. So a script that's written for, like 10 o'clock in the night over a few minutes becomes the most widely used script in the entire group. And somebody adds more to it, and it becomes big, and it actually becomes extremely useful. So people start using it left and right, and these hard-coded credentials just spread everywhere. And if one person writes it, second person copies the script, put their credential, and they spread it. So very soon, people have their own. It doesn't have to be their Linux password or Windows password. It could be just the tenant user ID and password that they log into OpenStack, right? However, that spreads. Soon, one person starts using other person's password because something they are not given permission to, so they can get the permission from the other person's user ID and password. So it just becomes a mess. It starts from there innocently, becomes a nuisance. However, such hard-coded password, if a hacker hacks into your machine, phishing, whatever, right, you're done. The hacker owns your machine, owns the cloud. Especially if you have a sudo, you're done. And as a matter of fact, one other thing that hackers do when they hack into your machine is they start behaving like an antivirus software. They shut down all the doors. They will act like an antivirus software. I mean, it doesn't matter what the operating system is. That's what they want to tell you. And people who actually not computer savvy start believing them. So this is a much bigger problem than what we think. And there is like scripting and testing, private cloud especially, when people do this, and hard-coded credentials is extremely common. And it's hard to overemphasize how big of a problem this is. On the other hand, asking people to type every single time is also a problem. So there has to be a better way to put in hash passwords or something else like that. So it's just at least slightly difficult to guess the password, right? It's very difficult to think of a mechanism right now on the feed, but this needs to be thought through. So this fails again. Now I'm going to go to the third and last case study that I have. So this is also has happened, and this is pretty disruptive. So a deployment team of a cloud, it could be a cloud service provider, something like that. So they want to deploy something like an OpenStack, and they choose an overlay. I mean, for simplicity's sake, I chose VXLAN. It is very popular, right? Or it's getting to be very popular. So in the process, they make a mistake. So networking is difficult to configure. It may not be difficult to configure for us or for a few people who really, really know networking, but in general, it's easy to get lost. So many configuration parameters need to be, tweaked. In the process, they leak the tenant traffic through the controller outside to the corporate network. Now, inadvertently, the configuration gets deployed because nobody is sniffing, what traffic is exactly going in and out, and all of a sudden, you've got traffic going out. In a computer or a heavy-duty networking company, such a private network could be used for development and testing. And if you are using something like a traffic generator, you could be flooding the entire corporate network. And this actually happens, every week. All of a sudden, people notice, how come the network is so slow in the lab? I can't even reach anything. And this is the traffic that they are flooding it with. This is a lot more technical. It's just kind of far-fetched to believe. However, this is every day, every weekly happening. So this not only leaks into the corporate network, it slows down the corporate network response, and it results in loss of productivity both on engineering side, QA side, and the if you take non-computer company, it can just hurt the productivity big time. And it could also leak the tenant's data, and that's a much, much, much bigger risk, especially if you're a cloud service provider, right? So these vulnerabilities are real. I wish people start taking this kind of thing seriously, because I, for one, have made each and every one of these mistakes, and I paid a very high price for each and every one of these mistakes. And I hope it helps to actually spread the word, and you guys are most welcome to contribute more into other vulnerabilities you guys have seen during deployment, and there are many. Thank you. I appreciate your time and attention.